That was so weird. It was so weird. It just turned off on its own. Okay. Anyway, continuing on, we have this. So I'm gonna tie a few wraps here, and that's gonna kind of keep things from moving. There's going to be slack if you're doing this style. There's going to be slack. It's not like uh, the usual assist hook that there's no slack, because you're tightening from this side, not this side. All right. So you have that. Okay. So it's tightened, right? You can do a sloppy job, or you could do a good job. Now, a good job would be finishing it off here. Okay. And then when you cut this off, what happens is that you don't have a thread crossing over, so that it looks weird from this side. And also, you cut this at an angle right here. Cutting it at an angle will ensure that you have a very clean transition. Okay. Now, all that's left is actually, let's hold this a bit. Position this. There we go. That's it. Okay. Now, we bind this thing. Now, if you can see there, transition's really nice and clean. So, lots of ways to make this clean. Let's see. This thing was moving. I don't like it moving. Okay. There we go. Then just that. That looks good. Okay, now we glue this. Just do it so it's done. And you can set it aside and do another one. Watch your uncle. For heavier plugs and for sinking plugs, I actually use epoxy, and I have to say it looks cleaner, and it will be cleaner if it was epoxy. And I don't use. Okay, so just see it. Okay. You could go with with the colors as well, right? But see, if you notice, I went with kind of like almost the same color as the plug, just so it blends. So uh, so kind of like a theme. You don't have to do that, you know. You really don't. Okay. Now again, we have this, and okay, right, and then three times. So I have that there, and then I'll have this. Okay, six, three. Okay, now we do that there. Like this, right? And we'll tighten it. Okay, this. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you the lazy version, yeah? So, okay. See, before, you see that? It's one, it is just one time instead of actually separating. You can just do that, and it works the same way, almost. Okay. But there is a thread that goes from the front to the back. It's hard. You could, well, I mean, when everything is finished, you I hardly see it. And also, by the way, you can put a you can put a uh, shrink tube over this, and it won't be visible. You know, so it really depends on what you want. Let's see. For me, I just want to glue it, and also look, that's not as clean as the others. Okay, I'm just saying that you can do this as complicated or as simple as you want. The job's the same. Obviously, we take pride on making things super clean. But guess what? If you're covering this with shrink tube, they all look the same. It's just that for me, I take pride in my work when it comes to these things. Like when it comes to a few things. All right, so just put super glue. It's not a lot, Okay, it might seem a lot like that, but once you spread it out, you'll see that it's just right. Okay. The most important thing is you don't put super glue on this bit right here. These are Studio Ocean Mark style, basically. They have like twin assists that are made like this. Not exactly like this, but yeah, in that vein. All right, I'm gonna clean this up here. Clean your needles, guys. Like for me, I'm cleaning this up so that the next time I use it, I don't have to worry about super glue residue and stuff. It actually affects the precision of your work. Box cutters actually do a really good job in cleaning this. So if you could see there, you could actually see where it crosses. It doesn't look bad. It actually you hardly see it. You know, it's just that I just don't like doing it. All right, I'm gonna get like accelerant so that all four of them are dry. And then what I'm gonna do is install them in the plug and then we'll talk. All right, so these accelerants stink, and I normally don't use them because they affect the color. Um, okay, so I'm gonna leave this to dry. That's already dry. Okay, I'm gonna take this. Okay, so for some weird reason, the last stream was ended, and I didn't notice. So in the last part one of this, we made these. All right. Oh, hold on. Actually, for this particular one, we're gonna zoom out. So I'm gonna set you guys up there. There we go. And then I'm juggling with a few softwares. Um, right. Welcome back. So first bit was I don't know, for some weird reason it was actually kind of um, turned off and it wasn't me. All right, so perfect. Okay, now take the device off. Now I'm committing to like a stream a day. All right, and today there's going to be another stream. Um, when is it? It's actually tonight. We're gonna have like a fishing chat with Dave Heiss, professional fly designer and very good friend of mine. Known him for more than 15, almost 20 years. Um, okay. All right. So these are done now. 3.0 for these, and for those that don't know, it's VMC 7266 inline singles, and these are the 5.0 size. And we're actually making this in the vein of like the SOM. It's a SOM style basically. So let's install them on the plug. Now the reason why I'm actually doing this, okay, and see, the thing is, when you put in just the inline singles, that's all and good. The problem is they don't hook as well as the trebles. The problem with trebles is that they hook really well because of their shape, and plus, of course, there's like three hooks there. So three hooks are better than one, uh, whether you care to admit or not. But the holding power of singles is like so good, and it's not like the what do you call this, the trebles that actually hold really bad. Okay, so uh, trebles are good hookers, poor holders. Okay, there we go. Whereas single hooks are poor uh, hookers, but really good holders. And what you want is like the combination of the two. Now, 5.0 for this, you could use 4.0. And what happens with this is that it acts like um, slow jigging assist on plugs. Okay, so when one gets hooked, guess what? The other kind of snags the outside of wherever the hooking point is. Okay, also they're not going to be heavier than conventional trebles, so it'll swim really well. Now, this, as you can see, it sits lower, and when it sits lower, becomes a better pivot point. Not a lot of people would actually go through the lengths, but and I really think that this is a really good configuration, and it helps the plug swim better. Okay, so lighter, 3.0, smaller size on the back. And when you install this, you actually install them the way you want them to face. So one guy facing this way, the other guy facing down. Because when you install it and you put it on, like so, okay, this is what I'm doing here. It basically just stays that position. See? So you have that, and you have this. Now, they won't snag each other. That's why I have like a 3 and then a 5.0. Now, here's the thing. Because this is lighter here at the back, it helps it wiggle. So it still really will swim really well. Okay, so that's the thing with this. And I honestly believe that people should pay attention to this one right here because they work really well. Last night also, I made some fast jigging hooks. Also on stream, so you can actually check. It was like a test of this thing. Look at these. They look like they're epoxied in, but they're actually just super glue. So this one goes here. This one for the pick zero. So I'm just gonna put the assist hooks on the jigs themselves, and then I'm gonna show you guys. All right. All right, now. Oh, this. might be just a tad too big for this jig. All right, there we go. That is much better. So we have this split ring. Putting this on. So last night I made these. I actually tested out the camera and just, checked to see if there were people that would join in, and there were. It's crazy. Are you guys new? I mean, you guys are not talking. So I don't know if you're my usual subscribers or you guys are from somewhere else. But if you want to learn shit like this, I have a lot in the channel. So there you go. If you're into stuff like this. Okay, so that's one that I made last night. Backstory of this, actually, I want to go out and do some casting, just mess around, practice. You could call it practice. And there's fish in that place, but basically super high pressured area. And I just thought I'd prepare some jigs and plugs, do some practice, but at the same time give myself a chance to catch those suckers, because the last time I went there, actually something bit a 100-gram jig. Oh, hi, I see ya. Yeah, I don't know if you're into this sort of thing. What do you call this? Shore jigging and plugging and stuff. Or jigging in general. Alrighty, there we go. So that now this is a slow jig, but I'm configuring. Oh, Rob, of course you are. Isaiah, my pleasure. But man, I'm so like last night, I actually went online. Like Rob, you would know, you're freaking there. Here, Rob. Okay, this is what we were doing. Hold on, let me focus so that you can see what we've done. It's dry. Okay, so see how clean it is. Right, there we go. It looks like it's epoxy, but that's what I'm saying. Like the super glue works really well if you just know how to manage it. So that's like 50 gram, 60 gram. 60 gram I could use with this. 50 gram maybe, but it's like thick line. But I'm probably gonna take like a 5,000 as well. So, jeez, man, the wind is howling. I mean, I'm looking at the trees outside the house, and if the trees are actually moving here at home, it means that at the beach it's gonna be howling. So, I guess I can't go again. But I mean, look at that. That thing will swim really well. I think this is one of those things that people need to pay attention to. It is a design I nicked from Studio Ocean Mark, and extensive research has been done. The hooks are different, obviously. You can put a single on here at the back, or you could just, if it's a single, you could use one of these. You could put them in as just an inline, or you can actually also use assist cord on them. But Again, it works like a slow jig assist hook, wherein if this hooks onto, let's say, the mouth, this actually hooks the outside and it holds better. Okay. Now, a lot of people kind of just put a single there, um, but having something like this is actually pretty cool, right? So just sharing with you guys some tech from Japan. And guess what? These won't tangle. You know, they're self-righting. See? So always going to be in hooking position. Now for this one, I'm using all light materials because this is a floater. And I know that I haven't been talking about casting stuff in the channel. Um, I do a lot of that actually. But if people are actually having a hard time understanding jigging and like the simple stuff and I honestly believe like jigging is so easy, right? Casting, it's a different story. I honestly believe that it's super technical. It might look simple on the outside, but Jesus, casting is like very technical, and it's so easy to get everything wrong. Like casting exists in a higher plane of thought, like at least in my opinion, and it's so easy to get wrong. Now, shore jigging is a casting discipline, so I would say that shore jigging is actually a bit more complicated than boat jigging. You know, also remember that in shore jigging, you're you are presenting on a diagonal plane. It's not horizontal and it's not vertical. Well, you're actually presenting in two planes. It's like horizontal for plugging, or when you're dealing with surface jigs like uh, a wind, okay, a winding presentation or a skipping presentation. So that makes it into a horizontal presentation, but more than likely you're actually doing like a diagonal presentation, and that makes it complicated. Like when a lot of people don't understand that when you're on a boat, you're dropping down, okay, a vertical, but as soon as it becomes a diagonal presentation, it actually becomes freaking complicated, because you don't feel the jig, like, or scoping is what the Americans call it. So when your line kites or where your jig kites, it becomes complicated because you don't really feel the bite. Um, that's when you know it's not that you won't catch fish, you would, but there has to be some hoops that you need to jump through, and one of them would be the hooks. Anyway, so um, in the previous stream, which ended abruptly, I don't know why, um, I showed how to tie these front hooks. So each of these I tied slightly different variations, really. I tied this one first, okay, and this has like a double knot at the end, and then I tied this, and then I tied this one right here, which is like super clean, okay, and then this was the last one I tied, which I've done like kind of sloppy, just as an example. So um, you guys can actually watch. But the process, as I've explained, kind of the same. Okay, the most important thing here that you need to look at when you're doing these things is um, this one right here. Okay, the space between your hook eye and your solid ring is actually very critical. Okay, a lot of people, for the sake of simplicity, for me, I put it right at the eye. Some people actually have a bit of a drop, like Studio Ocean Mark. For theirs, they actually have space. And guess what? That's probably going to work better. The problem is, if you're doing that, you're also extending the length. So, which means that you're forced to actually use a smaller hook. Okay. And with this sort of thing, it's actually fine because remember, um, that's the right hook for this. Okay, and you can see that the tines are actually quite small, but with the treble, what a lot of people don't realize is that you're actually looking at the entire width of the treble, which is, guess what, about as wide as a 5/0 right there. That's why I chose this. So the reason why these are really bad holders is because more than likely what's going to happen is that you're going to hook with just one of the hooks instead of two or three, which is very unusual. So each of these hooks, when you see the amount of flesh that they hold is like that much, instead of these where it holds like almost double. Okay, so single hooks are good holders, but poor hookers, obviously, because you're dealing with one hook instead of three. With this, you have two hooks. Okay, so you have 2/3 of the hooking capacity, but the holding capacity is more than double because you have that holding, and then this one guaranteed will snag. And when the fish moves around, these two will also snag it. So this is literally a slow jigging configuration of the assist hooks for plugs. Alrighty. So I think on my video on this one, my first video, I didn't explain that, but this is literally like slow jigging hooks on plugs. Granted that the configuration is kind of different, but uh, the assist hook configuration, but the function remains the same, and it also helps the lure move better. Okay, so for this becomes a pivot point. This is light enough so that it can really swing its butt, and that gives it a lot of attraction. So, like, guys, seriously, this is kind of basic, and it's actually one of those things that make casting so freaking complicated. There's also a lot of other stuff other than this. From Philippines here, they have a Facebook page. Yeah, same. It's the same username, the Fishing Kit. Although usually on Facebook, what do you call this? Usually on Facebook, I just post like videos to. I should actually do more stuff on Facebook, but I don't. Um, I use it for communicating with some as well. So yeah, that's that. Okay, the plan is to do one of these things each day, right? So that we're doing regular videos, plus we're also doing live streams, uh, because I like interacting with guys, and I think this is something that helps. It's kind of boring to actually just you know do those usual types of videos and stuff. But yeah, I mean, you know, look at that. That's actually really good. Now, I have a shitload of these, and I have like poppers and stuff. So, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slowly go through them, and I'm gonna live stream each time I rig these things, and that's kind of like additional content. And if I'm doing something like, look, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. There's like some really very interesting ways to rig stuff, Okay, like take for example, when was this? Was it? I don't think it was this Christmas because we were busy moving, but last Christmas, I actually um, put a very special rigging video, and people didn't really view it because I didn't tag it or anything. It's just, and the thumbnail is also very different. But I put in some really good rigging videos for uh, for lures in the channel. So look around, and sometimes even in the videos themselves, there are actually Easter eggs, and a lot of people haven't really found a lot of them because if for the people that found them, they actually comment, right, and then I delete the comments, which is like pretty funny, you know. So yeah, there's that. I don't know if there's a scheduled video that goes live today. I'm not too sure. What is today actually? 21st. Uh, oh, there's none. Tomorrow there's one tomorrow, and then the one on the 24th. So these would act as fillers so that every day we'll have like an upload, and then it's also a chance for me to interact with you guys. Um, so that's going to be interesting. Now, the first one, the first part of this video, uh, it's funny because it started with no views, like not no one watching, and it ran for like 26 minutes, and then all of a sudden it just stopped. Um, wow. Earlier today, at around midnight or past midnight, I was actually hanging out over at Dave Heiss's channel, the Fly Tying Zone, and he was tying flies, right? And he made like this nymph, several actually. He made a scud, then he made like a nymph. He's our guest for tonight, like the fishing chat. So for guys over at the US, it would be 2 p.m. Eastern. Here in Dubai, it's like 10 o'clock. And before that, we actually tested the system, seeing exactly how it would look on stream and stuff. So we were chatting. Also gave them like just example questions. So this is probably gonna pop up, but we're just gonna have a conversation, just like we did with Gary. I'm gonna ask you guys though, have you actually watched the the videos, Rob? Have you watched the video with Gary or KD? Um, like I'm wondering if these videos are actually interesting for you guys because I wanna. It's actually a plan of mine to actually keep it going. I think a lot of the videos here on YouTube show like fishing and stuff like that, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the industry that a lot of people um, don't see. Okay, and what I want to do with the talk show is share experiences. I'm gonna have like I have literally one of the best GT fishermen here lined up for an interview. Okay, this guy travels like half of the world and to some very remote places for fish, and he's a fishing buddy. So there's that. There's another fishing buddy who is an ex-charter captain who also travels around a lot to go fishing. So he fishes in different parts of the world regularly as like holidays and stuff. Um, and then I've invited ah, So Rob, it's a podcast, and a friend of mine from California actually uh, was traveling. Right, he downloaded it, and he downloaded it as a well, it's a podcast, and then he started just listening to it the whole time he was on a trip, and he was actually kind of surprised um, about what we spoke about and stuff. So yeah, he was like, "Oh man, I didn't know it was like that." So I guess for some people, it's like interesting and stuff. But yeah, I mean, uh, more guests. I have sent out some email and had conversations with people from different brands and stuff, and some of them have actually expressed uh, excitement. So we'll see. Um, I think I'm gonna have like the president of Studio Ocean Mark also in the show. Um, and we'll see. And a lot of these guys are shy. That's the problem, especially since they're going to be asked questions that they don't, they're afraid, or they think that I'm going to put them in a hot seat or something, but no, it's not the case. Anyway, so I guess I'm going to end this. All right. Because it's just I'm not doing anything. It's just me rambling on. But the main purpose of this was like literally showing you guys how to make these, because I honestly believe this is something that uh, people should get into. I know that it's a bit more involved than treble hooks or single hooks. That uh, yeah, Isaiah. That's yeah. I mean, like take for example for these like plug assist hooks and stuff. You know, um, I think I think I think it's one of those things that you can't make sexy. you know, I think I'll do a better job with like the thumbnail. So so something like this maybe or I'll take a picture and actually make that as a thumbnail. But oh, the title for the guests. Sorry. Um, Geez. So like take for example for Gary, he's a ultralight tackles ultralight fishing specialist. So yeah, okay. For KD, he's he is a lure designer essentially. So I don't know. I honestly don't know how to make that like clickbaity. You know what I mean? And I'm a pretty straightforward person. So what I put on the title is pretty much it, except for like these videos with catchy titles and stuff. Sometimes I play around with them because there's software that actually uh, rates the titles, and so sometimes you'll see something so clickbaity. Like take for example, um, what is it? It's like I rigged my jigs. I tried rigging jigs and this happened. It's like it was suggested and it had a high rating, So um, I guess something like that. But for the podcast and the interviews and stuff, I honestly don't know how to make it like a bit more attractive. Well, the guests, it's not unless I'm going to be talking to someone like, and this is okay. Majority of the guests that we're actually uh, inviting are either people that are knowledgeable on, like take for example braid. Okay, so one of the guys that I'm inviting in um, is the guy behind, or was not is because he left, was the guy who made suffix uh, what it is now. So he took over when Rapala bought suffix. Okay, so with him, and his name is Enrico. He was actually my ex-boss. So Enrico, he would he would give us a lot of knowledge about how braid is produced, how it's sized, what, what is used, what is best used for what, and stuff like that. You won't be able to get techniques out from him. However, if I have, say, like this GT guy that I'm talking about, his name's Barry. He's like my fishing buddy, right? So with Barry, then I'd be able to like get some stuff from him, right? So he's very technical when it comes to rigging stuff. So and so with, I guess, uh, some guys that I'm gonna be inviting in as well, but these are more fishermen than they are brands. For brands, um, it's gonna be different. Like, take for example, for Gary, um, the the whole angle for the conversation with Gary is how it is to be sponsored. Because a lot of people actually have the thinking that if you're sponsored, you have a good life, right? You get shit free. So I guess in the conversation with Gary, um, you could see like from the brand side, and then you could see from his perspective on what it was and what it isn't. Because a lot of people don't really see you don't really see that aspect of it. You just like kind of see that people posting stuff, people using stuff, and all that. Was that I watch your channel because your channel is the latest teaching channel. Yeah. So like, take for example, for uh, for KD, right? We're talking about lures. It's a first conversation. So we're just talking about lures and how it's made and all this, the design, production aspect of it. But what happens is, as we're actually getting them regularly in the channel and having conversations with them, obviously we're going to be talking about, lures and what this does and what does that. Like, take for example, when you're asking KD, like, okay, when I asked him, right, um, uh, how how did you actually think about a tie rubber that swims as opposed to uh, what do you call this? As opposed to uh, like a tie rubber that just relies on materials for action. So he goes, or that wasn't the question actually. The question was, how did you even think of that kind of the thought process? And then he goes, well, first, it's a collaboration, right? That's how big companies work. It's a collaboration, and from there, they ask guys that have experience in doing stuff, exactly what needs to be done. So that dictates the shape and all this, and then a team of engineers actually comes in and does it. In a smaller company, it's kind of different. So you do almost everything yourself, and then the problem is they also become very territorial when it comes to that. So they will give you something general, but they won't give you specifics because when it comes to like lure design, all right. So, like, take for example this. There's a purpose of why this has like a flat surface here, and it's not here, and this will give it a bit of action. There, it will dictate a kind of action, and then this side also dictates a kind of action, right? They will never ever tell you what it will give. So after a while of actually doing things, you'll actually kind of just realize that, oh, okay, a flat surface is actually what makes it plain. Okay. And then a curved surface is actually what makes it flutter. So based on that, a lure is manipulated the shape. Hey, Brett. Yeah. So based on that, the lure is actually manipulated to do something specific, right? Or you could work towards a specific action. The problem is, these guys are not going to share it. They're not. Like even if you actually kind of what do you call this? Ask them. Probably if they were very proficient in English as well, uh, but most of these guys will not. So that's why the questions are going to be very basic. But yeah, down the line, definitely we can try some information like that if we have the right person. So um, but yeah, there's a lot of people I want to tap. Guys that I worked with, higher ups especially, because honestly, I want to show a part of the industry that a lot of people don't even realize is there. So like take for example, when you're building lures. Okay, this. Okay, I've told this story before, but this was born in my car in a car ride from the hotel to a tackle shop. Okay, I'll 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 do that, Isaiah. Okay, so I really don't like talking about myself. Okay, and Isaiah, like you, I'm like a lurker. Actually, in the what do you call this? In the video with Gary, we talked about how you get attention and stuff, and I flat out just told him like, yeah, uh, I found a way around that. You know, so instead of actually having the attention on me, I used them. So they were like my chess pieces. So a lot of people here didn't even know how things started. So there are trends here that started, and like take for example this whole ultralight fishing movement that's happening, and it's going on here in the Middle East. No one knew how that even started, but I mean, there were people in one shop here, and I just told them like, you know what, I'm gonna make this happen because I have to sell. And I was in charge of the Middle East for sales and marketing. So I said, I have to do this because in the summertime it's dead. And at that, I knew that it was gonna work because before that, or before my job with Raps, I was fly fishing heavily, you know, and I knew that the small stuff in the summer actually freaking worked. And I've caught like flats fish to tuna with a fly in the summertime. So I knew that, it's going to work. So that was that. Anyway, so like this particular one right here, okay? Um, shit. I have to be very careful with my words, okay? But uh, it's like this: when a lure is created, okay, let's say this one, okay, when this is created from inception as an idea all the way to a prototype, a working prototype, it carries a cost. Okay, now that's your R&D cost. Now the smaller the company, the cheaper it is to bring a lure about from concept to realization. And this is what a lot of people don't realize. Okay? Malossi is the best. If that's what you think. I think Malossi does a few things really well. As far as their production is concerned, they actually do, they do well. But I mean, it's not an original concept. At the end of the day, they just followed whatever was available and actually kind of improved it or done something that they actually they just basically took something that was already there and made a spin according to how they know how to do things. So yeah, it's are they the best? It's subjective, isn't it? If you can get them and you use them, okay. But there are others that are actually pretty good as well. Quite basic stick baits that are made and marketed quite well. Yeah, wrong. Exactly. I mean, I'm not gonna knock on two guys that are doing something out of their garage and they're doing something that's really good. I think for what they're doing, hats off to the boys. It's quite impressive, I'd say. But to say that they're the best, I don't know, man. If there's only 3 brands that you've used, right, in your entire life, and this happens to be the better of the 3, it's very easy to actually say it's the best. But if you have access to like hundreds of stick baits, guess what? Different story. And that's the truth, right? Now, going back to these things, right? There's a budget, and the bigger the company, the more expensive it is to actually bring a product from conception all the way to what do you call this? All the way to production. The processes that it goes through, and because of the machineries of the bigger company, I punch. It becomes very complicated. So one product going into prototyping, before you know it, it stacks up because remember there's production cost, there's labor cost, there's machining cost, and all these costs are not cheap in a bigger company. Okay, so sometimes what happens is that the allocated budget for a particular lure actually falls short of what it's supposed to be. So instead of actually having a lure that's 100%, guess what? You'll get a lure that's 70%. But 70% for a lot of people is actually 100. So a lot of people don't really understand that some of the best lures in the world, believe it or not, they don't live up to their potential, because if you made that lure, gave that lure like a lot of budget, boom. Now, if you don't believe me, if you don't think that, there was a lure company before called Seville, okay? And this guy was super innovative. And he even had lures that had like liquid inside, not only for a weight transfer system, but also for the color and effect, okay? So he had lures like that. It was bought out by Pure Fishing. And when it was bought out by Pure Fishing, this lure and the innovation that this had disappeared, and I'm actually afraid that Savage Gear is going to be next because Pure Fishing bought them out. And Savage Gear is one of those companies in Europe that could actually compete with the JDM stuff, you know. So that's like the big question mark. And this is why when you're asking people about their tech and about like all these things, they're very hesitant to actually talk about it, you know. Um, and they won't share stuff because there's details like that. Like, take for example, imagine asking someone, okay, like a lure designer from a big company. Imagine asking him, like, what makes this lure so good, right? That is a very loaded question, and you don't even know that you're asking a loaded question. Because guess what? Even if it's really good to you, to him, he would have a bad opinion because he was restricted on budget. You get it? So it's like he's gonna say, "Oh shit, man, that lure could have been better." And then guess what? His words would affect because he's the guy behind it, right? And what's gonna happen is that one uh, phrase would probably be something that would spell the detriment of a lure. Okay, now here's another example. Um, there are some lures that are really, really good. Okay, companies discontinue it. Why? Right? So what a lot of people don't understand is that the product line of a company, okay, they have like, take for example, 30 lures, and then down the line, what's going to happen is that some nerd in the accounting department is actually going to look at the graphs. All right. Remember, people in accounting, they're a different type of nerd. Okay, they deal with money, and when it's a nerd that deals with money, they don't care about how a particular lure fishes. And I don't mean this in a bad way. This is just how the business works. Because at the end of the day, they're not running a charity. Okay? It's a business. And guess what? They just happen to be working for a company that either makes lures or makes rods, makes line, makes reels, or whatever. But it's a business. Okay? And we're just the consumers. Okay, it's no different from food, it's no different from drugs, it's no different from any other type of business that wants to make money to survive. So basically, these guys actually look at the graph. This lure is the same as this lure, but this lure is eating the sales of this lure. But this lure is actually selling more. Okay, this lure is selling more than this. This has the potential to give us more profit. This lure does the same thing, exactly the same thing as this, and this is newer. And this might be like an old style lure that makes us, like, take for example, 15% profit. But this guy, actually, this new lure is cheaper to produce and it gives us 30% profit. Guess what happens? Guess what happens? I make my own lures. I've made hundreds and addicted to it. Making one takes days. I've often made the exact same lure 20 or so times. Just fine shooting. Yeah, that's how it works. But see, and bigger companies, you go through different iterations, and then it goes through testing and stuff like that, right? I think the difference is when it comes to bigger companies is that since, especially when it comes to plastic and stuff, or even with lathe lures, they can actually make duplicates faster. The problem is they can't make just one, so they make a few. If they're faced with prototyping and stuff like that, they do handmade versions. Like, take for example, instead of full production injection molding, they'll make a mold that's kind of like rough. It's not super exact. But machining that tool still takes time. And instead of actually putting it in a big injection molder, they'll put it on the smaller one, so the production cost is lower. But it's still production cost. It's still time, because guess what? If that machine is not working, it's wasting time. And if that machine has to be stopped so that you put a different insert on it, that machine is losing each and every single thing in a production process for an industry such as this. And it's, again, it's no different from any other type of industry, right? It costs money. So that's why I'm saying that when it comes to like prototyping for bigger companies, it's actually more expensive. Now, for you, Rob, when you're making your own lures and you're tweaking, you do it for fun. And you have all the time in the world to spend on it, or you don't, right? But for bigger companies, not the same. That's why you'll find that smaller companies, when they first enter the tackle business, smaller companies are a bit more nimble. But as soon as they actually see some growth, they become slower. And when they get bought out by bigger companies, it gets even worse, you know? So um, sometimes they just cash in and then leave. Like Patrick Seville, after he sold his company to Pure Fishing, he was sitting on a desk for a few years until finally he got out. And I think the last time I heard was they actually got in touch with me for like what was that, a band of anglers, I think that was the brand, and they're trying to launch something that was like kind of a different business model, like crowd funded, what do you call this, it was like a crowd funded fishing company or something like that. I don't know how it's working actually. um, that's actually something that there we go, so it's still there, band of anglers. So so it's still there, but I don't know exactly what's happening with this company. I mean, they released like what, soft plastics or something. But honestly, um, after after the lures, Seville lures, he never changed. He hasn't. I have not seen the level of uh, innovation as Seville lures before. You know, and the only other company that came kind of close, uh, as far as non JDM companies are concerned, is actually Savage Gear, and now they're bought out by Pure Fishing again. So I don't know, big question mark. But yeah, I mean, you know, there's stuff happening like this in the background that a lot of people don't realize, and that's basically one of those things that I want to kind of share. You know, there's lure building, there's the rod part. You know, I think when Peter finally comes around, Peter Pakula, right? When he comes around, it's also going to be quite interesting because for Peter especially, he's responsible. He's responsible for giving the world black rods. You know, and I'm gonna ask him like how that came about. So a lot of people don't even know that he's the guy that introduced black rods to the world, right? So uh, he's known for marlin lures and stuff like that, but he's way more than that. You know, there are a lot of innovations that actually get traced back. Oh yeah, I mean, I think uh, a lot of people um, don't understand that there's a lot of physics involved in fishing. And guess what? The guy that actually uh, opened my eyes to this at a very young age was Peter Pakula. So you know, before that, before that, um, I didn't know that fishing was that technical. Okay, and mind you, I was like 10 when I first bugged him. When I first actually, yeah. So he's literally one of my mentors, like growing up and stuff. It was such an eye opener seeing like I first had my first encounter with a pakula lure when an uncle of mine actually showed me like this lure, and it was one of his old school lures. And holy shit, it was so effective. And back then we were trolling, that was the big thing. And I was like, what the hell? What makes this so effective? Because um, I had several uncles that were like, so into it. And most of our supply actually came from Florida, Hawaii, and Australia. So those three places. Okay, so it's either Australian, Hawaiian, or from Florida. American, but from Florida. And there we had regular. What do you call this? Yeah, and I think a lot of people would actually see a different side to Peter because Peter is always the resource person, so he's always the guy talking. So instead of that, we'll ask questions. And he's not being the one question. He's like literally like the teacher, and we'll see a side of Peter. Well, you guys will see a side of Peter that will be very different. I think, yeah, and then there's another Peter that I want to bring in, um, and he's a fly fisherman, a guide in the States. He actually said yes already. It's just a matter of scheduling. But this guy is so busy. You know, um, by the way, tonight's stream or tonight's interview with Dave, it's going to also be very interesting because he's in a shop. So you'll see him interact with some customers, and probably he's going to be like kind of leaving the desk and we're talking and stuff like that. But we're very lucky to have uh, people like them actually, just to talk. And we have a few people from the fly fishing world that are highly, highly respected. And this guy, the other Peter Kozad, um, he was even featured as one of the anglers in a G Loomis commercial. He's up there. Uh, Companies in Thailand hire him to teach their fly tyers how to tie. So every so often, he goes to Thailand, he goes to Chiang Mai and other places, and then he trains, fly tying techniques. He trains them for new flies or flies that he designed and stuff. Um, People like that. So I also want to take guys in the lure fishing world and do the same thing. And at the same time, I'm gonna ask like good anglers to be on here as well. And I guess if they feel like sharing, all their stuff or some of their stuff, then great. We'll ask that. That's why it's important to actually have a schedule and print the schedule for you guys, because it might be like Isaiah in your case. You might be lurking and everything, but it could be that you have some questions that you want to ask. And guess what, if it's there, right? And if you're there, I'll ask the question. I'll ask the question for you, because it's not on here. It's not like we have a conference call on YouTube, and I wish we could do that, right? Because it'll probably be fun. Like, take for example, uh, it's like we're bringing him into the stream, like how it is like here, but it doesn't work like that. So having Zoom do it, third party as an intermediary, it kind of, there's a lag. So that's another factor. If there wasn't a lag, and everything's live, then like super live, then it's good. Probably we could like, get more information. But yeah, I mean, when people like Barry come, when people like I know people like what's his name, Dylan. Okay, there's this ex captain. His name is Dylan, ex charter captain. His name's Dylan, and he's already agreed. And he was like, "What? Why would you want to talk to me?" And I was like, "Dude, why not? It's gonna be fun. It's just two guys talking fish." And he goes like, "Oh, I guess it'll be interesting." But um, we'll ask him like techniques, specific techniques and stuff like that. But Isaiah, I'm telling you, a lot of people gatekeep in this business. Okay, don't be disappointed. It's just the way it is. That's how they keep their lead. Okay, in fact, um, uh, I shouldn't be saying this, but you know, people I coach, right? People I coach, um, I actually tell them a few things, right? And one of those things that I tell them is that, listen, I know you have fishing buddies and everything, okay? And I know that you're a kind person and all that, but there are some things you learn that you should keep to yourself. And I think um, it's one of those things that I guess that in this channel, there are some that I'm very open about, and then I'm showing people mostly because it's already there, and it's just something that you need to kind of understand. Okay. Now, if you're not getting it from this channel, you're probably getting it from some other place. Okay. But I think I've mentioned this. The way we fish now, and it's not just me, it's just, there's a percentage of people in the world. Okay. It's not just me. And it could be that some are even doing even better. Okay. And whatever they're doing, they're going to be very reluctant to share. Okay. So the type of fishing that you see me do, that I show in this channel, is actually very different from the kind of fishing that I do when the cameras are not around. Okay. And some of these techniques I will never ever share. Probably someone down the line would discover it by accident or something, but I would never ever share some of these techniques because they're very destructive, meaning they catch a lot. Okay. um and I don't want to be, I've done it, and it happened, and it still weighs so much on my conscience that I actually feel that I did the wrong thing, and it's like done out of like good intentions. Okay, now here's a very good example. Um, there's two instances where I actually shared techniques with local anglers. Okay, and I showed them how to rig. That's it, just rigging. But the type of rigging that I showed them is totally something different from what they're doing, and it literally improved the way they fished. And guess what? That was done with the fact that I wanted them to support their families better. Okay? But these assholes are also the same people that go to the cockpit each Sunday. These are freaking gamblers and drunks. Okay? So instead of, once they actually started earning more, what happens is that, they got greedy. So overfishing happened in these two places. And literally, you can go to these places and you can trace back the decline to when I taught them specific techniques. And until this day, that's like weighing on me. So I'm very careful of what I share. Most of the time, what I share in this channel is actually just the understanding of things that are already existing out there. So I'm not gonna actually share something like quite revolutionary or something like that. That's the truth of it. Now, uh, there will be people, or there have already been people that, like, take for example KD. Why would he share something like, you know quite revolutionary with people in the internet? What's the, you what's the benefit? So you also have to ask yourself that. So, like, take for example me talking about the physics of the rod, the reel, the jig and how it moves in the water. That's fine, because guess what? I'm just answering the question why, right? So I don't see nothing wrong with that, because if you have the understanding and you're kind of already doing it, or you're in the what do you call this, in the early stages of doing something, it's better for you to understand what you're getting yourself into, and it's fine because you're kind of already committing to that. But you know um, what I'm really doing with these, for example, what I'm really doing with them, you won't see. And if someone actually happens to figure things out and stuff like that, if they're if let's say down the line someone actually shows something like, oh, this is pretty cool, okay, so he got like 70% of what I'm doing. Like, okay, yeah, sure, that's fine, Isaiah. And I do that as well. There are some people that I share techniques with, you know and I know that if they're going to use it, they're going to use it sensibly. So there's like a few people, like my fishing buddies, they've seen it. They go like, hey, what's that? Right? But if they ask that question, guess what? It means that I trust them enough to actually use it in front of them. Because most of the time, if I use these things, I wouldn't be with anyone. So, like, take for example, these the preparation for doing these things and stuff like that, right? So I know that this place is very difficult. Fish there, it's like the chance of actually catching fish there is less than 1%. Yeah, for conventional styles, but I've been there and actually hammered the fish by unconventional techniques, right? It's still legal, obviously, but these are techniques that are so left field. And I think this is where creativity in fishing actually starts to actually, some people might, and it's not bait. So some people might say like, oh crap. But most of the time when people see what I'm doing, like my friends and stuff, they go like, hey, what's that? And I'm like, holy shit, that's clever. You know what I mean? So that's that. Thanks, Rob. See ya. Yeah, I have to figure out a schedule for Peter. I think it's gonna be like really early morning so that the people in Australia, have the time. That's A. B. It would be also around the same time where the Philippines is awake, and then it would be like early evening for guys in the US. So I guess that would be something to consider when I am what do you call this, scheduling with Peter. But wow, I mean, I didn't even expect this to be actually longer than it should have, because all I did was to actually like release, Um, this is the start of this stream. It was this. All right. So, any other questions I could actually address for you, Isaiah? I know that it's really late. See, you mentioned earlier, what it was an hour and 30 ago. You actually said it was like 2 a.m. there, and it's like 3:30 already. So I don't know if you need to go. Hawaii. Oh God, man. that's a difficult place to fish, dude. You know, um, quite familiar with some of your techniques there. You know, which I have used elsewhere in the world, and I would say that they freaking work. You know, so I slide bait, I whip, I dunk. Um, you know, I grew up reading Jim Rizzuto. I have a collection of his books and stuff. So, you know, actually learned quite a few things from Jim. You know, one of the guys that actually talk about the physics and fishing as well. You know, he's such a big loss to the fishing community when he went. But yeah, fishing techniques of Marlon Parker. Uh, what do you call this? Kevin Nakamura. His trolling pattern, which I find very, very interesting. You know, the Marlin stuff. Uh, Obviously, with the lures and stuff, my heavy influence from Hawaii as well. My trolling lures, uh, you know, how I will make them because I make trolling lures too. So yeah, it's like what do you call this? Hawaii, and the guys over from there actually gave me like influenced. Hawaii, Brett. Hawaii is actually not easy to fish in. You know, I would say Hawaii is difficult. You know, the the terrain makes it very difficult to fish. Um, like on shore, right? Very very difficult. And then offshore, the fish are very scattered, so you have to really know how to find the fish. So the guys that actually catch fish in Hawaii know what they're doing, man. Like, and by the way, Hawaii is the birthplace of modern popping. I would say that it's not the Japanese that actually started this whole popping thing. It would have been the Hawaiians. You know, this goes back to like the Pele poppers and all, like in like the early 90s, 80s, and stuff like that. So modern popping actually came from Hawaii. And knowing how they've been fishing for ulua, like for a really long ass time, a lot of techniques were derived from Hawaii. So like slide baiting and stuff like that, that's all Hawaiian. And then when it got exported to like South Africa, you know, that's when another innovation came. Uh, so instead of one-way slide buckles, you have no return slide buckles. So, but the Hawaiians started it, you know. So big props to Hawaii. Um, all right. So questions, guys. Questions. Throw some questions so that we can keep this conversation going. Otherwise, I'm gonna end the stream because you know I'm actually going to be filming um the so we're doing the series on ultralight, right? And we have when is it publishing? It's going to get published I think on the 24th. So we already have like a video done and it's live for members. But on the 24th, is it live for members? I'm talking out of my ass maybe. Okay, so on the 24th, video will publish uh, video will publish on the 24th talking about ultralight rods. And I need to make the video for the reels, you know. So I dug out a, a few of my ultralight reels Because my God, man, I still have to literally fix this office, and it's almost a year since we moved in. And because of the heat of the summer, I just kind of stopped working on stuff for the house. So what I'd want to do is uh, get on with the house construction again. But yeah, I dug out a lot of or a few of my ultralight reels, so I need well, at least the more important ones and some good examples and stuff. Um, and what I use them for. But I think that's the most important thing. So, I have that and I can make that video. So that's in the pipe. Okay. Lack of places with depth on Oahu is what makes it hard for me. But I know of quite a few guys that make jigs work for various fish with shore fishing. You can do maybe an episode of fishing in shallow with water structure. Yeah, there's actually a place here that's kind of similar to that. Uh, Isaiah, this is one of the more creative stuff. Okay. Um, when you're whipping, you can use those bubbles, right? So you could actually use lighter jigs with that on a shorter leader, just enough so that it actually reaches near the bottom. But like take for example for shore jigging, you could use these bubbles. Okay, it's up to you. Fill it up with water or not, but you can make them neutrally buoyant as well, right? Now, a very good idea would be something from where is it? Uh, it's a part of the U.S. Okay, and they do something kind of similar to the bubbles. So if you look online, they're called casting eggs. All right, and the difference with a bubble and a casting egg is that the casting egg has a release clip. Give me a second. I have one here somewhere. Ah, Jesus. What is it? Come on. Ever since moving, it's been difficult to find some stuff. Yeah, couldn't. Okay, so Isaiah, you know what? When I'm able to use the machine outside, okay, I'm gonna make one just so I can share it. Okay, basically it's just an egg-shaped thing. Um, you can actually put weights on one side so that you can cast it out properly. So yeah, I mean you can go fancy or you can go as simple on these things as possible. But the hallmark of this is that you can actually use it as a casting device, um, and you can put like a 10-gram jig or even like a 5-gram jig, whatever. When you're fishing shallow areas now, especially when you're targeting fish like uh, papio, okay, and they're kind of far, all right. So you have like one of these casting eggs, right? You put your leader, and then you have like let's say a short trace or a short leader, and then you can actually hook the jig onto the release mechanism, which is literally a nail or a screw. You know, you just put it there, and then you cast it out as far as you can. Once it hits the water, it dislodges, and then the egg itself, when you reel it in, it either bobs up and down depending on how it's shaped. It bobs up and down and skips on the surface depending on the speed. But if you actually reel it slowly, what it does is wobble, you know, it wobbles like that, and it imparts action on the jig. You can use spoons as well, and they work really, really well. So it's similar to the casting bubble that you have, you know, but it's kind of a more advanced version, you know. But yeah, I mean, I have a few that I've been using. Larry lures casting eggs. Yeah, yeah. I think, I mean, there's a lot, dude. It's not just one brand. There's a lot, and I think there's actually a company where you can actually, yeah, it's one of these. Yeah, you can use that. It's like, look, it's like $10. you know. So yeah, dude, that's one of them. Yeah, it's that. Um, there's actually a what do you call this? There's actually a company where you could buy like just components and put them together. So I guess that would be cheaper. But this is $10. It's not bad, you know. Um, I forget which company, but if you could just do a Google search. But yeah, definitely something like this. Definitely, the Japanese have something similar as well, um, for fishing off the beach, and they have like a long wires, and half of it is weight, half of it is float. So they have like more complicated delivery systems in Japan. This is a very easy, very straightforward method, dude. So you could use something like that, and for shallow water wouldn't be a problem because that's a float at the same time. So if you're fishing structure and you're fishing, like, take for example, spoons and tiny jigs, uh, like, to tell you honestly, even flies for this, because they use flies for this. Okay, but uh, any lure that's light, even small jigs, grubs, and stuff like that, you could use on this. And it's totally addicting, dude. Totally addicting. Okay. There's a similar fishing method in Japan, skip bunny, that they call it, and then at the very end of that, they have a lure called a hair clip. Right. So for the JDM style of this, you could look for skip bunny. Okay. Let me find a link. Just to give you an idea of what it looks like, right? Uh, I don't know if I'm able to actually paste this. Nope. Uh, Let me see if I could actually link it in. There you go. I think I think this is something that could. you know, There we go. What is the advantage of an assist versus inline single for plugs? More rotation, flex. Um, I explained this particular one that I'm showing. If you actually, now when this gets published, you can actually rewind and see it. This is kind of an advanced configuration. So the advantage of this is that it acts like a assist hook for slow jigs. Okay, so basically, when you hook with this, take for example this hook. All right, this actually hooks the outside. All right, and then since it will turn like that, this will also find a way to hook the what do you call this, the fish, for this particular configuration. That's why I'm actually showing it. All right, and this is the same kind of rigging that Studio Ocean Mark has for their they're assist hooks, plug assist hooks. So the advantage is that it acts, as far as hooking percentage is concerned, it's closer to trebles. The problem with trebles is that um, it's small. So the meat that it holds is actually small. Right? So sometimes, or most of the time, you only hook the fish with one kind. And when that happens, the holding power is actually quite low. Also, if you measure the strength of this one here, it's actually quite weak. In single hooks, okay, um, obviously, if it's only a single inline, the biggest advantage is when the fish is hooked. When the fish is hooked, you have a big purchase because you're holding a lot of meat. The problem is, you know, that's 1 versus 3. So the hooking power is actually quite low. If you do this sort of configuration, you have 2/3 of the hooking power of a treble and 200% of the holding power of a single hook or an inline single hook. So I hope that makes it clear. That's it in a nutshell, uh, basically. So it's actually quite a big advantage if you think about it. This is the kind of stuff that I use on tuna and GT, and a lot of my friends actually ask me to make them these because they're lucky fucks, and you know they have me. Lazy fuckers. Yeah, actually asked me like, I told them like, dude, there's a video actually freaking showing like how it's done, and then they goes like, yeah, but why would I do that when I have you? So I'm like, fuck you, man. I end up doing it for them. But yeah, it's fun though. It's kind of like tying assist hooks for me is kind of like therapeutic. So they buy the materials and just have me do it. And then they go like, all right, bro, I owe you a fishing trip. So, good deal. Right. So Isaiah Yozuri makes them, the skip bunnies, if you're interested in doing that. So that's also kind of interesting. Um, but yeah, and like with that is actually hair clip lures. So this is like for shallow water fishing. This is like, this is like kind of standard, and it works really, really well. So hold on, let me find like a link for you. Yeah. Where's the? It's so difficult to actually like find these. All right, let's see here. Here's a very good picture actually. Let me take the image. This is from AliExpress too, or I don't know, like, but this is an example of what the hair clip is. Here in California, you're only allowed 3 hooks. So which size would you put at the single? For which one? For the plug, Kevin? Usual configuration, plugs or jigs. Okay, let me get one. Let me get one lure that I actually rigged with a single. All right, so here, so no bull. All right, so you can see here that I actually used this thing. So, there we go. What the hell? All right, so there we go. That is a. This is a cultiva, or is it owner plug hook. All right, so you have 3 hooks. So you could do it like that. This configuration is okay and everything. The problem is, it's gonna hook fish, right? If there's a lot, actually, you'll miss a lot of strikes. And then when you hook the fish, it holds. The problem is you have to hook the fish first, right? But with this sort of configuration, you have a lot more. You have a lot of chances to actually hook the fish, and yeah, it holds way better than trebles. Please. See, my dogs are all. Hold on, my dogs are. My dogs knocked on the office door, and so plugs for tuna. It's bluefin, right, Kevin? That's what you guys are going after. In the East Coast, the fishing for bluefin is actually closed, but I guess in California, it's still okay. Just yesterday, a friend of mine actually sent me a picture of people catching bluefin near the Golden Gate Bridge, and I'm like, what the hell? They used to only catch salmon and crabs there. Have you ever used a hook from the toe point of a plug? Of course. Of course. Yes. I'll add to that. It's actually, I rigged it on a CD14 Rapala. There is a rigging technique that that enables you to do that, Brett. So yeah, I've done that when I was like what, 10, 15, something like that. Probably no, the younger than 15, like 10. I started doing it like that when I was 10, because specifically on a CD14, and the reason being, this was with what do you call this? The reason being is that, believe it or not, at that point, it was actually very difficult to find trebles in the Philippines, or not find, replace the trebles. So the thing that gave me an idea that it could work is, obviously, when you're baiting marlin, you use a bridled tuna, okay? And that's when I said, like, hey, you could literally find a way to bridle trolling lure. So yeah, and I found out that my uncle actually showed, or one of my uncles actually showed me an article, although it was very vague, from a saltwater fishing magazine. Although it was very vague because, well, it wasn't vague actually. To think about it, it wasn't vague. It was kind of vague to me at that point because I didn't have the materials. But what it was like literally, showing crimps and crimpers and stuff like that. Shit, I didn't have. So it was kind of vague. If you don't have all the gear, right? Like, how the hell am I gonna do this? So literally, had to look for ways to do it, and then I figured it out. At first, it didn't swim correctly up until I actually found that when you're bridling because that is a bridle rigging, by the way. Okay, so I found that if you bridle rig the plug, what you need to do is to give it as much freedom, okay, as it wants. The problem, the problem with bridling also is that, you know, plugs like these, okay, if you take the hooks off, they don't swim correctly because they're actually made, or they're actually balanced so that the the hooks make them swim better. Okay, so it could be that it rolls too much and stuff. The hooks make them swim better. So you actually kind of have to, uh, what do you call this? They have to um adjust. Okay, so like take for example, in my case with the CD14, it took me a really long time to kind of figure out how to make it swim well, because without the hooks, it kind of swam all wonky. So it took me a really long time to just bend the, what do you call this? Bend the lip and get it to swim correctly. Very difficult, mind you. You know, I think now there are some plugs with self-adjusting lips, or sorry, self-adjusting eyes, that this type of rigging method would work well. Granted that this type of rigging method is also not right for a lot of plugs. Okay, so these types I haven't yet. I have not attempted, you know, because most of the time, um, so here's the thing, right? With Rapalas, I was getting a lot of strikes like that. Okay. With these, I'm getting a lot of strikes that are like that. So the head part doesn't really get touched a lot. So if I find that, like take for example, it could be that on another lure, I would find that I get a lot of hits. Just for one reason or another, I get a lot of hits in the head. That would clue me in that I could put like a bridle onto here. Now here's the most important part. Here's the most interesting bit. Earlier today, I actually said that I have Easter eggs planted in the channel. Okay. Um, one of these is actually bridle rigging the lure. So it's already up to you fuckers to find that. I'm not gonna tell you which one it is, but I did mention it earlier. But one of these Easter eggs actually have a bridled lure, and that was it. That's something that I just put on there. So not tagged, not tagged. So if you actually viewed that, you know, you'd say like, oh, what the hell? But yeah. So very interesting question, Brett. Kevin, I hope my answer earlier is actually something that's useful to you. Uh, AXA, um, also something I hope that you could use, but rigging it like this. So uh, if you guys want to learn how to do this video, at the start of it, okay, because I streamed just to show these. All right, so I actually for this video I actually showed this, and then in the previous video, the one that's before this, all you have to do is just go to the channel, click on videos live. Okay, it's in a playlist called uh, what is it again? Plug. It's in a playlist called the Fishing Chat. So that's our podcast section. Okay, our podcast playlist. So you can click on that, and then on there is plug assist. So what I'll do is after this stream, I'm gonna go to the other PC. I'm gonna capture a thumbnail, essentially, you know, for this video, and I'll show like the this bit right here so that you guys can actually see. So just a recap on this. Each of these I showed some variations. So like take for example this one, has like a double knot. This is like a faster version of this. Okay. Uh, this I tied super clean, and then there's this passed through the the eye 3 times. This was done separately, the tie here and the tie here. And this guy is the sloppy version. All right. So more than likely, this is going to be the closest thing to what majority of you guys would be doing. Because I don't expect you guys to actually do something like super, super clean in your first few times. So I put an example there that's most likely going to look like what you're going to do, so that you'll know that even if it looks like that, it's still okay to use. So each of these, actually, all 4 of them, have like what do you call this? Like variations. Alrighty. So just so people would kind of see um, different things instead of just making 4 of a single thing. So at least you know that, okay, even doing it like this is fine. Alrighty. Um, but yeah, any more questions before we go? Because I don't want this to be longer than it needs to be. But I am committing to 1 stream a day. So, we'll have streams every day for, I think I need to actually keep this in like an hour or so. It could be any time of the day, really. But I just want to have like at least 1 upload a day, and streams are actually really good because it's a very easy way for me to just go online and interact with you guys. Um, but right now I'm kind of experimenting on what time would be nominal so that people won't, or I could just move things around so I could interact with guys in Australia, I could interact with guys in the States and the Philippines or wherever, just so I could vary things, right? So I get to interact with people from places like that normally don't get to interact with me. So good for the channel, good for the viewers. Yeah, lives are great. Yeah, I mean, you know, um, Brett, here's a funny story. Okay, a funny story. One of the subscribers earlier on, um, when he watched one of the videos, he just happened across one of the videos, right? And he goes like, "Okay, this guy," because I was talking about physics and stuff, right? And he was like, well, "All right, this guy's probably reading off a script or something." Hey Hank, plug assist hook. These I showed how to tie these. So he was like, this guy for real. And he's like, he's probably reading off a script or something. And then I went live, right? He just happened to be online and then on a live and later, Isaiah, I hope you get that thing and then it helps you when you're shallow water fishing. So Brett, he's online, and he saw that I was live, and then he popped in, and then he started asking a lot of questions, and all these questions that he asked were like kind of unrelated. So it would be like this and this and that, and then I answered them right, just like that, and he was like, "Holy crap, this guy's for real," because he didn't know at that time that when I film, and I don't know if you guys know, but when I film, I just turn the camera on and then start talking. I don't read off of scripts. The most that I do are for there are videos that are very difficult for me. Okay, and I'm ashamed to say that most of these videos are the basic stuff. Okay, so to keep, like, take for example, to keep it on topic, I have 2 monitors. Okay, so this is one, all right, and I have the camera here, and then I have another monitor on the side. Okay, let me show you guys. So that's that, right? So there's that, and then there's that. So basically, this vertical monitor, I'd put notes on this. Okay, I'd put notes, and that's it. So I just put bullet points and stuff. I don't read it, and sometimes I don't even go in order because it kind of depends on the topic and the flow or my flow. So, I use that as I would use the list as just um, sometimes to tell me where I'm at. Sometimes it's bullet points, just reminders that I need to talk about these points and stuff. But that's that. Every single video I do is actually one take, and then I chop it up in software just so that I would take like parts that, and there are parts that sometimes um, I don't I don't feel as if they don't contribute, so I cut them off. Sometimes I go off on a tangent. Yeah, Brett, it's my notepad. Yeah, it actually the software I'm using is notepad, so it's just basic bullet points and stuff. So um, I just chop it off, make it shorter. Sometimes like the volume might be too low, and but I mean the volume now. It's the last few videos that I've uploaded. They're actually not edited. I just record and then upload because um, the software I've been using kept on crashing the computer. So after a while, I just got tired of it and said, like, you know what? Let's just fix the capturing software that I have. I can adjust contrast and all of that, and then I can check volume. So that's it. And then after I film and just upload. That's why, and I'm not shy to show my mistakes. I'm like, I don't need to be perfect. You know what I mean? It's like when I make a mistake. So fucking what? I make a mistake. Okay, and then right? I don't need to hide it from people, So, and like take for example for these, right? I mean, when I made this, it was all in good, but on the second one, I actually said like, oh crap, I made a mistake. Well, fine, whatever. Instead of actually not showing it, because guess what? When you're making these things, especially when it's something repetitive, you're bound to make mistakes, right? The problem is a lot of people are so anal about a lot of things that are kind of useless, right? So, like, take for example, having this knot right here, okay? Having a knot like this, that's just one pass versus two. Does it serve a purpose? No. The two wrap looks better than a single wrap. That's all it is. But as far as the purpose is concerned, just as long as that knot doesn't slip, it serves the purpose. That is all it is. So I also want to show that, listen, if you guys have rejects, it's still fine to use. Other guys get so engrossed in perfection and stuff. Sometimes perfection gets in your way. I'm look, when it comes to these things, especially for stuff I use, as much as possible, I don't want to make mistakes. Okay. But at the end of the day, there are times when you make a mistake, and guess what? If the mistake is minor, you don't have to break and start from scratch, right? Now, I hate wasting material. Is it like in fly tying? I see a lot of people wasting material, and I treat my tying assist hooks exactly like how I treat my fly fishing or fly tying. I hate wasting materials. That's why you'll see me like, instead of actually having a long tag end, I would have a short one, because it's braid, and braid is not cheap, right? I mean, this spool right here, I'm using it to tie assist hooks with. Okay, this is brand new. This is someone's fishing line. All right, and I'm just using it to tie assist hooks. This is someone's fishing line. So for me, just respecting that. Because look, man, sometimes I buy for the purpose Not sometimes, but always. I buy for the purpose of using it for tying. So while other people are actually using it for their fishing line, they're very careful. But all right, I use it for tying because guess what? It's important for me to use quality materials so that when I use them, it doesn't break apart. A lot of people just use like ordinary thread and they think it's okay. That's fine, but in my experience, and God, I've had quite a few. Um, I tend to screw things up. You know what I mean? That's A. And B, there are a lot of things that I do that, I don't show them because they're bad practice. There's a lot of things that I do that are experiments because that's how I learn. It comes to a point where, you've learned quite a few. And then the only way to do things more efficiently even is like trial and error. So, I do stuff that a lot of people might not have thought of or something, and that's highly exploratory and stuff. So um, the stuff that tends to screw up will screw up. And a very good example, okay, trying to catch like something really big on like very light gear, ultralight gear, right? If you're after something like a stingray on like fucking ultralight, like who in the right mind who's not smoking like something questionable would actually go after like a stingray with an ultralight rod? You have got to be high on some sort of substance, right? But guess what? You know, um, highly questionable, but it can be done. It has been done, and sort of fun, right? So, what can screw up will screw up, and guess what? If you're doing something like that, it's guys, it's shitty. It's a shitty thing to do. Don't even try. Yeah, eagle rays on 2 kg line. Oh god. Um, I wonder who done that. But yeah, I mean that's on a shore jigging rod, dude. Okay, so imagine doing the same on ultralight stuff, like shit like this, right? Look at the tip; it's like thin as hell, right? With 0.3 PE line. That explains why Stella 1000, because you need a robust reel to be able to do shit like that. But you know, um, when you're doing shit like that, and again, let me repeat, it's a shitty thing to do, and it's not even something that I want to actually put online. You know, uh, doing something like that, but it's nice to actually see exactly if you can do it or not. But when you're doing shit like that, you have to make sure that your knots are good. And I think this is what ultralight is. Ultralight is a big exam. Okay, I see ultralight as an exam. Okay, whether it would be a self exam or someone else's exam and stuff like that, I see ultralight as an exam because Japanese ultralight stuff is literally like a miniaturized version of their bigger stuff. And that's all it is. In America, it's a different story. Okay. So imagine you have all these things, like almost the same feel as, like a sea bass rod, only a miniature. And they're built to cast out small stuff. And you're able to target bigger stuff with them. So what happens is that your tackle gets tested, your hooks, your drag, your method, your knots, leader system, everything. So it's like an exam for you. If your knots hold out, if your technique is good, rod choice, reel choice, every single freaking thing is put on a microscope, literally. So if you're able to be successful, guess what? Your knots are good, your rod choice is good, your reel choice is good, your drags, okay? The way you set your drags are good and all of that. So, and this is why in one of the videos, right, I actually showed, and I mean, I actually said that this is the line I'm using, and then boom, up comes like an eagle ray. But um, I took that opportunity. It's not always that you get that opportunity, and I was very lucky to actually capture that from start to finish. Because it's very rare. I think in the channel there's only 2 videos where I actually had like the journey, the whole journey documented, and both times I didn't even know what fish was on the line. Um, but I always take that opportunity for for me to actually show. Like, take for example the technique I used on the ray, on how I managed it with light line and how I turned it. Because guess what? If I just allowed that ray to bully me, I would be like walking the whole length of the front and then probably go towards the back and then back again. But I controlled that ray with light line. So again, you can see it's a demonstration of how to use the rod, how to use the reel, the drag, of course, the fighting technique, and all that. Obviously, the leader system, the jigs, and all this. So it's literally an exam. That's why a lot of people here, okay, a lot of people here are kind of afraid to step into ultralight. And there are people that are pretending as well. So they're using like ultralight rods and reels, and then their line's not, or they're using heavy leaders and shit like that. But they don't realize that actually when you use a heavier leader, the knot is going to be a bit better. Because guess what? It has extra grip. It's gripping on something really big. And sometimes on ultralight, if your knots aren't good, it cuts itself because the braid actually cuts. Uh, yeah. I mean, I've used light line to catch some fish as well, and um, it takes a lot. It takes a lot. But I think for me, like for 1 kg, I wouldn't use spinning rods. I actually use a fly rod. For that, my tippets would be like that small. But yeah, if you want to be better, I think this is one of those things that I'm probably gonna mention in the recap video for ultralight. If you want to be better, ultralight is it. It's a you know it's a segment of fishing that you actually should get into and actually practice. I think one of the things that I'm gonna do is try and catch a longtail tuna on light line, and I'm gonna try to do that this season. I've caught them on a fly rod before, but catching one on ultralight would be fun, man. It's probably gonna take a while, but for some shit like that, you need like a good reel, and more than likely after you catch the fish, that the washers are dead. The washers would be dead. Also, especially when it's braid. Remember braid over tests? So it's kind of very difficult. Now, like take for example, you have what's labeled 1 kg line in the states, not really 1 kg. You check it and it breaks at 6. So there are fire lines in the states that are sold that's supposed to be 2 pounds. No, breaks at 6. Right, they're thick as fuck. But the Jap lines, they're more reliable. So 0.3 could be like closer to 6 or 4 pounds than it should be. I think 0.1 is 4. So some brands even mislabel it in Japan. But let's see here. I think Momoy, right? That's why I like Oshikage. And when when we're actually going to be talking about line, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a time when people have a violent reaction. Um, Amazon US lists the line that I use for $30 for 150 meters, and people are going to have like a severe allergic reaction to that. I don't buy it at that price. That's ridiculous. But remember, these are like, yeah. 0.1, it's like 3-4 lb. So Momoy actually does it well. So 0.1 is what I use. Okay, that's 1.3 kg, 3 pounds. But if it overtests, it'll be like 4. And then the next one is 0.15, which is 2 kg, so 4.5 pounds. 0.3 is actually 7 pounds. And then 0.2 is like 6. So I have like a lot of 0.1. Most of the ultralight fills I have are actually filled with 0.1. Sometimes it's so fucking stupid, especially when you hook something. Platypus mono here in Australia. Yeah. Oh yeah, like that's nice. 12.7 kg. That's, oh my god, on that light line. Holy crap, man! Takes a while though. I mean, I caught one on like what, a fly rod and a 10 weight. So that wasn't easy. It was fun. But it wasn't easy. Plus, a fishing buddy, Kelvin, was there with me. Um, with a fly rod, the butt is so short, right? And to get a lot of leverage, I actually put it near my crotch. And there was a time when I was pumping it and I was gaining line, but all of a sudden it actually made a run and the handle actually hit the family jewels. Oh, fudge. I almost fainted, and that was so unexpected. But yeah, ultralight, so much fun. That's what I'm saying. It's a mono, Brett, is actually easier to use on ultralight than braid, because mono is very forgiving, very very forgiving. When you actually use braid, it becomes kind of hard. You know, um, what I miss about mono is how easy it was to tie knots. Because braid is such bullshit, especially when it's very very thin. It's such bullshit. When you're tying knots, it's super super bad. And um, I've I've I've, I've resorted to like a modified surgeon's knot, so like a 5-turn surgeon's knot for my braid to mono connection, because when you're actually doing FGs in that scale, it's so difficult to finish it. To close it is such a chore, and I've had a lot of slippage on FGs at that size. So what I've done is actually just do a modified 5-turn. Um, what do you call this? A 5-turn surgeon's knot, and it's worked for me. And it has to be 5. It's kind of weird because it could be that it's 4, but it doesn't hold well, and it's 6 and it breaks a lot. 5 seems to be. Yes. Yeah, thin braid is like, I mean, that's what it's used for. And also there's like a question with ester line. If I use ester line and stuff, I think it's a fucking waste of money. It's not going to be as tough as braid. It's not going to be as sensitive as braid. The only thing is that it sinks, right? So um and it springs, especially on light line. With you're putting line on, it springs. So I'd rather use braid. And my first ester line was like a long time ago, and then I just said like, this is bullshit, man. I can't stand it. So I stopped using it. The only thing about Esterline that I like is like the color. You know, it's so color fast. So you know, you have something like red, like, and I like red a lot, right? So what do you call this? Yeah, seeing like a deep red line before, it's like, oh man, that looks cool, you know. Um, and the reel that I put it on is actually a Stratic CI4. So it matches, right? It looks super cool with the red line, red spool, and all red and black spool and all of that. Style points quite high, but then after that, I just said like, I went back to braid, and for thin braid, I only use Oshikage. So Momoy Oshikage, and then you know, I mean, if you've used it, I've one of the first people to actually use the Oshikage was me, because I literally, at the time of its release, I was on vacation in Japan, and I visited the Momoy factory, or not factory, office in Hyogo. And, you know, I was just planning to just say hello and stuff like that, but they had like something planned. And it was kind of, I had my family with me, so it was kind of weird, right? And we planned to actually go in one of the castles in the outskirts, Himeji, because my daughter's into like the castles. My daughter's kind of weird. So um, she actually wanted to visit these castles because of its wartime history. And I was like, what? And she was like, Dad, it's actually quite interesting because they have holes for guns, spears, and you know, and all that. Uh, I was like, and this is a girl we're talking about here. I know she's a nerd, but you know, it's so weird. Anyway, so we went to several castles just to actually saw, just to actually see how it was used for war. You know, so like the narrowing staircases, and then the angle. So the higher up you go, the narrower the stairs were, the smaller the doors, and the angle was what do you call this, higher. So it's all built so that it's easily defended. So we went to several of the castles, and one of the trips was actually to Himeji. And Himeji is actually very close to the Momoy office. So on the way there, we arranged to stop by and stuff. And then one of the things that I didn't know, they had stuff planned, but you know, they gave me a spool. Actually, they gave me one spool, and I said like, no, I need more than this. Uh, so I have like a few. I had a few spools of the Oshikage, and then I asked the distributor here to actually order a lot, because you know, um, it was one of those. And I was working for Rapala at that time, and we had Nano line, and that's also Suffix Nano line. That's also pretty good. The thing is, it's still kind of thick. So um, aside from our brand, I wanted to have at least some other brand, so that you know, if there are people that don't like Suffix, then they can choose another. There's another one they can take. At that point, Varivas wasn't making, or Varivas didn't have an answer to it. So that was it. And then I haven't looked back since. You know, Oshikage is it for me. If they actually come up with a line that's actually better than Oshikage, then great. But I've caught like crazy shit with Oshikage, you know. So that's that. Had good luck with Daiwa, Dura Sensor, and my BFS had but the coating gets everywhere. Just to try Oshikage. Momoy Oshikage. It's not cheap though. I wouldn't use Daiwa line. You know, I mean, with the Daiwa is a fishing reel company, and they make excellent reels. I have Daiwa reels. I wouldn't buy their rods. Shimano does better rods. Um, line, historically their line hasn't been good. So I don't even think about Daiwa. So Momoyo Oshikage, as far as very thin lines are concerned, is it for me. And even in my ultralight, I have Oshikage um, spool. But most of my BFS reels have Oshikage, and then there's one or two reels that I put experiments on. So yeah, Momoy Oshikage. Okay, so um, they're not cheap. Okay, they're not cheap. Expect to pay a lot, but you get a lot. And also, it's very rare to actually find 200-meter spools. Most of the time, you'll only find 150. Yeah, breakaway is actually like a British style uh, uh, surf rod. Okay, um, you can look at assassins. There's assassins that are sold there. Uh, I'm not too sure. What do you call this? I am not too sure who sells them, but there are assassins there. Okay, so that brand is South African Assassin, and they're pretty good. If Daiwa in South Africa actually has some really good surf rods, but surf rods for the states, forget it, man. They're kind of different. The mentality on how they make surf rods. So uh, for surf rods, I would say South Africa, really really good surf rods, and they're very good value for money, and they're very very light. Okay, so there's a rod called Kingfisher. Okay, that's Daiwa essentially. So if you can actually find that, they come in three pieces, and you can buy like rods that actually have stiff or hard cases. Okay, top end rods would have more than one tip, and they would give you like what do you call this? Different tips. Like that guy, you want to see something really cool? I'll show you. Nick is not the inventor of breakaway. He's the distributor in the US. Uh, he's just distributing it in the US. He's not the inventor. Breakaway is a big brand in the UK. Here, this is South African, and so this is made by Shimano specifically for the South African market. You can't buy this elsewhere. Um, so see, this is what I'm talking about. So you have two tips, right? And you have a middle section and the back section. So this is the middle section, and then one tip is actually heavier than the other. So you can choose to have different weights, right? And it tells you like there. This is rated for 6 to 9 ounces, and then it should be heavier on the other one or lighter. I don't know. It depends. But South African rods, like breakaways, there's actually kind of a difference between South African style rods and British style rods. South African rods, I would say, um, are way lighter than their British counterparts. Um, but you wouldn't know the difference unless you actually like test them out. Um, Fortunately for me, I have access to both. So I have British style rods and I have South African style rods. And most of the time, I use the South African style rods. Um, I just like them better. They cast better for me. Although there are UK models that are just specifically for distance, and you can't beat those. Those things are monsters. Italcana, yes, I've tried. I've had like one or two before. Um, those are Euro rods. They're closer to the British ones, actually, the UK style rods, more than the South Africans. I still prefer South African rods. I find the Euro rods soft, like Italcana. I find it soft. This is why you actually get a lot of distance on it as well, because it's kind of soft. But South African rods are a bit more stiff and kind of a different kind of different too, because the South African style rods, remember, they're fishing for sharks and really big stingrays. So I mean, that guy, I think if you actually do a search on YouTube on South African style fishing, it's like uh, if it's the rod that no, I don't think they have the distance record, dude. The distance record would be by um, sheesh, what's his name? Hold on. Oh, it's broken, huh? So the current record is from Italy by Filippo Montepagano, and he beat Danny Meskop's distance. That's great. But Danny was using a 100-gram sinker, whereas Filippo was using 150-gram. Okay. Yeah. So if it is Filippo, then it would be Italcana. So that's good actually that the record has been broken, because that's been sitting there for a really long ass time by Danny Meskop. So that actually gives them something to do. But yeah, I mean, um, distance is one, and catching is another. So yeah, I mean, as I said, Italcana, I found it a bit too soft. So as far as distance, what do you call this? Distance is concerned, that's actually going to help you out for loading. So that's great. But it's closer to UK style surf rod. For me, I like the stiffer rod. Um, Namely because when you hook something, it actually helps you out more. It has a lot more backbone and stuff. And I'm a short guy. I mean, even if I want the distance, I know that there's a limit to how far I can cast, even if I pendulum that thing like a motherfucker. So it's not. I'm not gonna be able to achieve like the same distances as taller guys or more powerful guys would. Um, Also, since I'm a small guy, it'd be very difficult for me if it's soft and the fish has more leverage than me. So for me, I like it a bit stiffer, and to be able to give the fish a bit more stick, but not too stick. too stiff. And I like the South African rods because it's faster. The action is really faster, and I'm used to like fast rods. So yeah, I mean, give it a shot to that guy. You know, if you can find like a South African style rods, they're really good. Um, but yeah, having said that, even the Daiwa stuff which I have, and I use regularly, are actually quite good. But again, only for the South African market. I mean, I always get surprised at how light they are. The rods themselves, even if they look kind of big. Anyway, so I guess that's it, guys. I don't want this to like in total the first part of this plus this is actually about 3 hours. So I need to get some rest because tonight I'm going to be speaking with Dave. So if you guys are able to get online, it is 2 p.m. Eastern time, and that's about 10 o'clock here in Dubai. I don't know exactly what time it would be in Australia, but yeah, tonight there's going to be a conversation between me and one of the best fly tires of our time. And we're going to be talking about uh, fishing in general. Uh, I haven't really caught up with him for a really long time, so a little update on how he is with his life and all that. And yeah, midnight now in Australia. Okay, so it's 4 hours from now, so it'll be 4 a.m. there. 4 a.m. Yeah. So I don't know, Brett. Maybe you could just watch it after it's uploaded and stuff. But it'll be a very interesting conversation because one of the questions I'm gonna ask him is like, why it's so freaking expensive, right? Fly fishing is great and everything. It's just so expensive, man. I mean, my fly gear, decent at the most, but Jesus H, decent is like $1,000 reel. It's fucked. It's just fucked. And then you have to buy the line and then the rods, and the rods though, I have to say they hold value. So like take for example, if I sold my TFO TICRX, it's probably going to sell more expensive than how I got it before. Because um, like for the modern rods and everything, they're nice and all, but the actions are already very different from what they were before. So hardcore fly fishermen would probably do like the old ones. Like there's a rod called the BVK, also from Temple Fork Outfitters, and the original ones are actually very well made. I don't know about how they're made now or what the quality is, or maybe they even scrapped it. But the old BVKs were surprisingly beating the better priced rods. So something like that. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. I'm gonna end this now and play some Valorant. Later, guys. Thanks so much for joining. And then for those that have not yet, please subscribe. Yellow bye.